Welcome, everybody. This is Live Front and Center by the Women's International Music Network. I am your host, Mickey Angeline, and it is my absolute honor to welcome to the show Miss Holly Knight. Holly Knight, fabulous, phenomenal, multi platinum songwriter, 2013 inductee to Songwriters Hall of Fame, producer, list goes on and on. Welcome to the podcast, Holly.
Thank you so much. This is great. I'm really happy to be here.
Oh my gosh. And it's weird because we're going to talk about your book, obviously. I Am the Warrior, and with all of your hits from the 80s and the success you're getting not only from with the book, but songs you've written from the 80s that are still living on and things are happening. So let's dive right into it. Let's start with the book first, which is this right here. I Am the Warrior, Your Crazy Life, writing the hits and rocking the MTV 80s MTV. So what was so crazy about your life? Can you touch on that?
Well, the 80s was probably the last period of like just crazy living and partying and doing a lot of things without thinking about the consequences. And then, the 90s came and things got a lot more sort of serious. Music changed. MTV kind of wasn't about music anymore. It was just sort of like the Wild West in a lot of ways, and it was an explosion, like a renaissance of just lots of different music. There's everything. I mean, you had everything from, like new wave and, all these pop groups like Duran Duran, and then you had all the rock groups, and everything was just like all thrown in together. Then you had Madonna and Prince, and you had the whole Michael Jackson, and I mean, it was just like so much stuff going on. And the videos that they did, some of them were just kind of like ridiculous, and you could have cows walking through the room, and just
I
all.
remember having
Yeah,
nothing to do with the song whatsoever, but it was just the
right. Yeah.
visual presence, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I had that song "Obsession" I wrote that had, men dressed in togas serving hors d'oeuvres around a pool. And I think of like some of the videos to some of the songs I wrote. They were just like ridiculously silly. And now looking back, they're so iconic because they were so ridiculous. You know, whether it was "The Warrior" or "Love Is a Battlefield." I mean, yeah, they were.
Love is a Battlefield is still one of my favorite videos to date. It's
Yeah.
so powerful. And you had it was the famous choreographer that did that video, saying that worked with Michael Jackson, and his name escapes
I
me.
know, and his name escapes me, and I wrote about him in the book. But she was the first. That video was the first one that actually had dialogue in it, making it sort of like a mini movie.
Okay.
And then after that, he did Thriller.
Yes.
Yeah, I think he was in the Battlefield video.
Yes, he was.
Yeah.
He was. So it's like to this day, because this is way before. So this is so my era, because I was in high school during the 80s. And when I think about where music is now, the streaming capabilities and the videos people will create, it doesn't touch on what MTV did, because that was the first time we saw a story to a song. Even when you mentioned that it had nothing to do with the lyrical content, there's still a story there, and it just kind of burns into your memory. And with Love Is a Battlefield, that told a very strong story. Everything from her being a kid, being kicked out by her family. I remember the brother waving at her from the window, and then she's working, as a night person, a call girl, so to speak.
Yeah.
And then they get the strength to break away
Mhm.
and stand up to the guy. And in the 80s, that's not something that was as popular for women with men. And
Right.
so it was like a statement piece, along with the powerful lyrics and Pat Benatar's performance, of course.
Yeah.
So, I mean, were you on set for a lot of these videos for your songs, or any of the videos?
No, I mean, I usually wasn't, unless
Okay.
I've been invited a few times. Like I was on the one for The Best that Tina Turner did. Um, and that was pretty amazing because it was in the valley in like one of these big, hangars. And I saw a woman walk in who was clearly, she had an equestrian suit on, and she was walking like a stallion into this stage. And I'm like, I was trying to figure out what was going to happen with the horse. But it made sense because I saw Tina say in an interview once that The best could be about anything. It could be about a person or a car or a horse or anything that you feel is of the best quality, you know. I was also in, well, was that London, or I was there for the video that Heart, when they did Never, the song Never, which I
Yes.
co-wrote.
Love
I
that
was there for
song.
that shoot. But I mean, I wasn't really I wasn't at the Love is a Battlefield one for sure. I just saw it for the first time, you know, like everybody else when it came on and premiered. Remember when they would do the MTV premiere and everything?
Yes.
Such a big thing.
Yes. Such a big thing. And this was before you could record TV. So
Yeah.
when you knew that was coming, you set your entire life on hold. And you got, if you could, you got your, I remember this, getting your friends, like, whose house are we going to watch this at? If it was at midnight, we stayed up till midnight. Like, it was a really big deal. So when the first time you saw that, or really any of
The
the,
very first show that aired, ladies and gentlemen, MTV. I saw
yes.
the very, very first one, and I write about it in the book. You know, my book is centric on that time period. I mean, it starts out with some background on my childhood, and kind of explains a lot about my growth and my journey. And then it kind of jumps to when I had my first band, Spider, and how I was trying to get a record deal, and we had the same manager as Kiss. There's quite a lot on Kiss. And because, you know, I played on one of their records when I was 20, like the whole record.
Wow.
And we had the same manager, and then we ended up getting signed, and then we did 2 records, and I talk about Mike Chapman. But basically after that, once I decided to move from New York to Los Angeles, that's really when my career took off as a songwriter. And I
Okay.
decided I wasn't going to be in a band. So each chapter in the book is about, you know, another song that I wrote and the artist that was involved with that, whether I co-wrote with them or they just recorded the song, you know, sometimes, you know, what we did, or, you know, and it's really sort of concise that way. So there's a chapter with, say, Heart or Bon Jovi or Aerosmith, or when I wrote The Best. Each one is sort of like a, you know, a journey through that time period. And then when I get to the end of the 90s, I basically talk about the rest of my life in the afterward. But it's really sort of a love letter to the 80s, because it was just so much fun. I mean, it hasn't, to me anyway, it hasn't been nearly that much fun since then, you know.
I agree. And maybe it's just because I loved the 80s. I mean, and not just because I was just becoming an adult. It just, like I said, because I work in music now, as you do too, which I'm sure you're still working with artists today. And it's, my mind is still rolling the fact that it was 40 years ago. Let's even just start with that. But
It
you
was.
going to the best. You're right when Tina said that. I agree with her, because that song has appeared in so many commercials, in movies. And let's touch on that, because that recently was in, that one was included in the Super Bowl, or was that The Warrior?
No,
That was the best.
it was the best. It was an
Okay.
apparel commercial. And they actually, I think Billboard listed like the top 10 favorite commercials, and that was one of them, which was, you know, that's big. A lot of people, how many people watched the Super Bowl?
Millions, hundreds of millions. I want to say it was 112 million that watched the game and 118 million that watched Rihanna. So the eyes were millions. And
Yeah,
everyone, that's the thing. People go to watch the commercials because they know
dude. They're
commercials are premiering.
they got really smart with it. They started putting, you know, music stars in the videos, so people were actually looking forward to the commercials and the halftime as much as the, well, maybe not as much as the game, but still definitely something, you know, to
Oh,
watch,
yeah.
look forward to, you know.
Completely. It keeps you glued to the TV. So your Pringles one, didn't Billboard list it as the top, like one of the top 10 best Super
Yeah,
Bowl commercials? That's
yeah.
so, congratulations, but honestly, not surprised,
Thank
because if you go to Holly's website and you click on the discography, I went down your list and the names are incredible. But you know, one of the ones that caught my eye, which blew my mind, was OTEP. You've written
really.
more than one song for OTEP, because that's such an extreme genre of
Yeah,
music.
yeah.
I've seen her live,
She's
and
intense.
so she's got the heart of gold. She's vegan, but she has got a message, and
She's
she's
fierce.
just 120% everything. And
Yeah.
when I went down your list and I was like, You wrote songs for OTEP. That's freaking there's like you can write for any genre and anybody, it seems like.
You know what? A good song is a good song, and I pretty much like all genres of music, with the exception of a few things. I'm not really big on sort of the modern version of country. I kind of like the more old school, which they now call outlaw, which is funny because that's the original.
That's
But
what they
now,
call it?
yeah, because
Outlaw.
now, like
That
when
makes sense.
outlaw music, if you go to the Sirius radio station of outlaw, they're always playing like, Patsy Cline and Waylon Jennings and Johnny Cash.
Yeah.
They're not playing like the new sort of pop version, which to me just sounds like bad rock, you know?
It went super pop in the last, I wanna say 12 years. I remember that when it flipped over to pop around the Garth Brooks, Shania Twain, that was
Right.
like the
That was
mid-90s, I
it.
wanna
Yeah,
say,
that's when
and
it
then right, but it still was distinctive. Even though it did it, it still was distinctive. You still can tell it was country. The crossover was noticeable, but now if I listen, I turn on a country station, you're right. It's so pop mainstream now, and I guess for me, I struggle to figure out which part of that's country now. What makes it country, right? I don't know.
right,
Like you said,
exactly.
bad rock.
You don't hear a lot of rock music on radio these days,
It's
which,
hard. I work on a rock. I work in on an active rock station, 98 Rock here in Sacramento, and we premiere new music all the time by notable, credible artists, right? Godsmack put out new music, Disturbed put out new music, our local boys, Papa Roach. Yet the listeners really prefer the music from the 90s and the 80s and the early 2000s because it's just your memory bank. It's the story of your upbringing. It's the story. Music does that. It's like the memory of a heartbreak or buying your first home or getting married. It's like people prefer music that they've created memories with, I've noticed.
right. Well, that's another reason why I'm hoping that people will go out and buy the book because, um, there's like two groups of people. It's either the people that were there and going to feel nostalgic and go, "Oh my God, I remember that, and I
Yes.
remember this, and I remember that," and you sort of like reliving, or you might remember when a certain song was written, what it meant to you, what it smelled like and tasted like and felt like, and who you were romantically involved with, or someone that broke your heart, or maybe it was Love Is a Battlefield or something, but it takes you on that journey. And the other side of it would be people that were too young, that weren't even born yet. My hope is that they're going to read it and go, God, I would have liked to have been there. That sounds like a lot of fun because now things are vastly, vastly changed and moving so fast. The world is moving so fast right now.
I already know when I read through the bio for the book that I was going to connect with you on too many levels, and I was probably going to cry through a lot of your book
Uh,
because I can relate to some of the, even when you talk about your personal journey, I can
yeah.
relate to those things.
Well, especially as
And
a woman too, right?
yeah,
Because I mean,
exactly.
it was a very, very small pool of women that were in the music business at that time. I mean, there were women, there have always been women singers, but all the other things, whether it's writers, even today, writers, producers, musicians, that's sort of always sort of been the man's realm, which is ridiculous because it's not like it takes muscles and heavy lifting to write music. Even guitars, it actually takes some fine motor skills to be able to play fast and eloquently. It doesn't take brute strength. So why
Exactly.
sort of separate it into this is man's territory? The only thing I can think of too is that I think that the guitar is sort of like a phallic symbol to men, you know
Well, especially the way they play it.
strap it on and the way they play it and way
Yes.
like in their mind, like we own this. This is ours. But I've worked with some amazing, amazing musicians that happen to be women that are as good as it gets.
Oh yeah, I agree
And
100%. I
drummers and bass
mean, going
players.
down your list, you worked with many of them. And then there are men that know to highlight. And if you don't mind, I'm going to read it because it's
Yeah.
on the Amazon site. It was a quote by Alan Hunter.
Right.
And he had said, people who grew up in the 80s tell me that MTV was the soundtrack of their lives. Holly Knight deserves much of the credit. Few songwriters have written such a diverse collection of songs for such a broad range of superstars. He could not have said it better myself. You
I
really have.
That was amazing he said that, and I got all the original VJs to do a blurb for the book, which really was validating because, um, they had such great things to say about me, and I've done some interviews with Mark Goodman, and, um, yeah, I've had blurbs from different people, whether it was Elvira or Gene Simmons, all kinds of different people.
Oh yeah, I've seen the quotes. So many people.
Yeah, so that was nice. That was like, they went to bat for me, and they were all people that I did a lot of work with. Uh, so
So
yeah.
you started out as a musician in the late 70s, early 80s, keyboardist in a couple of bands. Where did the switch for you? When did you realize that you wanted to pursue, or did you realize songwriting? And how did you know how to, like, when you write these songs, do you write them first and then pair them with the artist? Do you work with the artist and something comes up because of the artist influence? Like, how does that work for you?
Well, they're kind of two different questions, but let's start with the first one, which was when I was in my first band, Spider, which had also one other member in that band, Anton Fig, became quite legendary himself over the years as a drummer. He was the drummer on the Letterman show for 20 something years.
Wow.
But this all started because he ended up playing drums on Ace Frehley's solo record when Kiss, each one of them was doing a solo record. And that brought us to the attention of Bill Aucoin, which was Kiss's manager, who ended up managing us. So we made 2 records, and I was a musician first. I started piano when I was 4, took classical piano for 10 years, and my mother was really grooming me to be like a serious concert pianist. But then I discovered rock music, and the louder the better. And she hated it, and I loved it. So, so that put me into a different direction, and I always wanted to be in a band. Like, I didn't want to be a songwriter. It's not that I didn't want to. It hadn't occurred to me to be a songwriter yet. My dream was just to be like a rock star in a band. And I was like this Emerson, Lake and Palmer nerd because, of course, he was a keyboard player and he was eccentric with his thigh-high boots and he was British. And I kind of was picturing myself as a female version of him. But then when I joined Spider, everybody was writing. I mean, the goal was to get a record deal, and the only way to do that would be to have original songs, and we all wanted to do that. So they were writing songs, and I thought that they were pretty mediocre songs. I mean, they were good artistically, but they were not the kind of songs that were going to get us on the radio. So I thought, okay, I'm going to give it a shot. Can't be any worse than what they're doing. And to my surprise, I was good at it. And not because I think, oh, gee, I'm good at this. It's because we would turn in the songs. We did it on both records. And the label never knew like who wrote what. We didn't put any names on it. So it was unbiased. And they would always pick my tunes as the singles. So that was an indication that I was actually pretty good at it. And then things got a little sketchy with the band, as is wont to do. When you're in a band, it can be a real mess. Like, it's like a marriage. And rather than the band being happy that I was coming up with songs that were, hits, they were still upset that rather than being exciting about it, they were more competitive, and they were like, well, how come I didn't get a song on this record or whatever? It's all in my book. But so I went to the record head, who was Mike Chapman, who was a very famous producer, by the way, that did all the Blondie stuff, all the Blondie records. He did Nick Gilder's Hot Child in the City. He did the Next, My Sharona. He was the president of our label. We were signed to a new label he had put together. And on the second record, I felt we hadn't come up with the first single. So I went and asked him if he would write one with me. And that was Better Be Good to Me, which
I love that song.
Ended up being on the second single on Tina Turner's Private Dancer. So I wanted to leave the band, and he told me I should move to California. And he said, if you move to California, you can write full time. Don't worry about being in a band. I mean, being in a band is nice, but being a hit songwriter, that's a lot more unique and very much in demand. And if you can write not one hit song, but just do it over and over again, that's special, and you should be doing that. So I packed up my stuff, picked up my cat, and moved to California. And that's really when my career started. That's the answer to that question. And then when you asked me about, well, do you write, how do you, I guess the question is sort of like, how do you pitch songs, or
right?
first do you write with the artist? Every situation's different. As in my case, it often started with a phone call where someone would say, we want you to meet with Hart, or we want you to meet with Rod Stewart, or Tina would call up and say, I need a song, because after I did Better Be Good to Me, then I got a call to try and write for the next project was the Mad Max movie that she starred in. It was the third sequel.
Thunderdome.
Yeah, exactly. And they needed a song, so I wrote a song for that.
We
And
don't need another hero.
that's not mine.
I just remembering the movie.
Yeah, that was
Which one was yours?
Mine was called One of the Living, and it was
Ooh.
a rock track that opened the movie, and it was very
Yes.
crunchy, post-apocalyptic metal heavy. So yeah,
Yes.
and I actually wrote that first, and then they got they had the We Don't Need, which was a great tune. I agree. We Don't Need Another Hero is a fantastic tune. So I wrote that, and then after that, I think every time that she would do a record, she would call me or I would call her and go, "You're doing another record. What can I give you?" So the relationships developed over time.
So beautiful.
By the way, Tina Turner wrote the foreword to my book, which was really an honor.
I saw that in the front. I need to put this up because check it out. You've got someone who's really fangirling over you.
Crystal Magic.
Yes.
I love crystals.
Yes.
I collect them.
Remembers the band.
Fighter, yes.
One of her idols is you. Like, love it. So yeah, I saw that at the bottom right there. Forward by Tina Turner. My mind is still reeling that she called you up and said, I need another song. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that for you. You're so good. That's why you were inducted into the Songwriters Hall of Fame in 2013. What was that like?
It was amazing, but I have to tell you, as usual, there was 400 inductees and 16 of them, I was the 16th one, were women, and the rest were men.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's not that they don't award them to women. It's just there weren't that many of us around then. I think there's more now, which is great.
Yeah.
But it's disproportionate to the men that are out there. It's like it's a very patriarchal business still.
Agreed.
And I love it when artists like Taylor Swift sort of get real fierce and say, no, you're not doing it, we're going to do it this way.
Yep.
That sort of being told what to do is done because I sell enough records that I'm the one holding all the cards, and I love that.
So side note on that, do you have any opinions about the Grammys recently?
I thought it was really boring this year. I mean, I have to say, I was not that knocked out. It just seemed a little bit sort of lackluster. I mean, I am a huge fan of Bonnie Raitt, but I'm kind of surprised that she won, Song of the Year. I'd never heard that song, and I don't know anyone that has.
I was surprised too. I mean, I'm very happy for her, obviously, but I was surprised too.
She's phenomenal. But I mean, when you're talking about Song of the Year, it's really got to be something that a lot of people latched onto. So I'm not sure. I think she was shocked even. I mean,
she looked completely shocked.
Right. So, I mean, that was kind of odd. I was happy for Lizzo. I love Lizzo. I don't know. So there's something that's lacking in the Grammys. It's sort of become sort of corporate and lackluster to me, There have been other years where it's just, and I think a lot of people looked and said, oh, that was the best Grammys ever. What did you think?
So I'm trying to figure out where they're going with all of this. Number one, I feel that they're aware of the pressure on them to be more diverse, not just in gender, but in, in heritage and everything in genre. Many of them apparently were awarded off camera, including Lifetime Achievement for Nirvana. Why would Lifetime for Achievement for Nirvana be off camera? Don't understand that.
Well, they've done that with the Producer of the Year for years.
I don't understand that either.
It's one of the biggest categories. And
yes.
So speaking of categories, I'm actually starting a petition.
Okay.
To the Tonys that I am seeking. I want them to add a category for jukeboxes. Jukeboxes is the nasty name. They call them jukeboxes. I call it a catalog music. That's the proper term. And what a catalog music or jukebox musical is something where the songs were written beforehand and not specifically for the musical. So, for instance, Mamma Mia or Jersey Boys or Beautiful by Carole King, all those musicals were never given a single award for the music. And those musicals won the
Wow.
because there's no category for it. And I think that that has to change because it's largely responsible for a huge audience that flocks to Broadway that wants to see shows where they recognize the songs, and there's so that's another thing that I'm working on. Not so much for me. I mean, I'm doing pretty good, and I had 3 songs in the Tina Turner musical, and I had a song in Moulin Rouge. So they got 11 nominations, but not one went to the music. But I'm just trying to see if there could be a change that can be made for future musicals and future writers.
Good for you. I think that's wonderful that you're doing that. You're using your platform
Right,
to better things. What
right.
would you change about the Grammys
Well,
if you could change one thing?
I would add a category for jukebox musicals for the sound,
Okay.
the cast record. I would definitely,
Yeah.
I mean, they've got a category for everything. They even have a category for liner notes, which is interesting because you don't have liner notes anymore because everybody streams everything. I
Yeah.
actually did, Tina Turner put out a special edition. This was last year for Foreign Affair, which I had 4 songs on. One of them was the best. And she had asked me to write a liner note for it. And I said, well, how much do you want? And her label said, well, we want 2,000 words. So I did it. And I'm thinking, damn, I probably could have won a Tony for that, but I can't win a Tony for my music in a musical, which is pretty ridiculous. But yeah, that would be nice to see as a change because it still fills up the musical, whether it was written for it or, I mean, I have a
Yeah.
lot of respect for traditional theater. So it's not about that, but I just think they need to broaden it. And they have, I was doing all the research this morning actually, and they've added different categories for different things as needed when it was appropriate.
Well, then here's crossing fingers that happens, that you get that happening.
Yeah.
So speaking of how your music is still relevant today, you've got a song coming that's in 2 movies coming out, 80 for Brady and Cocaine Bear. The Warrior, you said, right? It was?
Right. Yeah.
What? So so then number 1, okay. I wish I could speak on 80 for Brady, but I can't stand Tom Brady, which makes me so frustrated that my favorite actresses are in that movie.
Great.
Love all of them.
I haven't seen the movie.
I can't stand Tom Brady. To me, he sucks, but still great for them. Great for you to have your song in that. And the cocaine, I can't wait for Cocaine Bear to come out because that looks absolutely hilarious based on a true story.
Yeah.
But I'm just curious how someone like you, obviously the invites flood your email box, but how does it get decided any of your music that comes in a movie like that? Like, how did that happen?
Oh, well, I have a publishing company, Primary Wave, who has been killing it, getting me song placements. We I guess they're sort of partners in a way. They own some of the publishing, I own some of the publishing, and they're just, I mean, they even I don't know if you watch Schitt's Creek, but
I have not, but I know it's hilarious.
it's hilarious. And I had the best was in 3 episodes, and each version was a different version. One of them, the star Noah Reed did a beautiful acoustic version. Then there was the final episode of the entire show. When the show ended, they did an a cappella version of it with, I guess, an a cappella group called the Jazz Girls.
Wow.
And it was during the wedding scene of these 2 men. So after that, it's like the number 1 wedding song for the LBGT community now.
Why
Because
don't I know that? And I'm LGBT. What? Okay,
yeah,
I'm gonna have to look that up because I believe you, but I cannot believe I don't know that. That's amazing.
yeah, yeah. And
Oh,
so that's nice to see songs here. It's like this song is like 40 years old now, affecting, or no, 33 years, something like that.
still,
33 years, affecting change now. I
still.
mean, these songs are bigger now than they ever were. I mean, like I had the best was in T-Mobile too, but
Yeah.
but Schitt's Creek was more meaningful. Or The Warrior was in a show called Glow. I don't know if you remember
Yes.
that on
Yes,
Netflix.
yes. I know
That
about
was
Glow.
the theme song. And then I wrote another song called Invincible that Pat Benatar had a
Love
hit
it.
with. That was at the end of the season. And yeah, my song Obsession got licensed this year for American Horror Show, which I'm a fan of. I love that show.
America. Oh yes,
Yeah.
that's well. I could see
Mhm.
why you would. You write such hard, grungy rock music. I could see why you would love American Horror Story as well. Crystal actually doesn't like Tom Brady either. Thank you, Crystal. I appreciate you on that one. So why is it you
You
think?
know what? I don't even pay attention to him. I don't even pay enough attention to him to like or dislike him, you know.
So then, why is it? Do you think? I mean, obviously, your writing is beyond gold, but what is it about these '80s, early '90s songs that keep resurfacing and keep being, repurposed in commercials and movies? Why do you think that is?
I think people are kind of, in a way, very hungry for that kind of quality music because music has changed so much, and a lot of it is, it's not really based now so much on, melody. And I mean, look, there's a difference between a great hit record and a great hit song.
Agreed.
Yeah, so a great hit record is a lot of production, it's drum beats, it's a lot of vocals that are like little teeny little phrases, but not like a melody you would sing in the shower, you know what I
Right.
mean? So I think that just people miss that, and they miss that whole sort of. And if they grew up and their parents were into sort of that whole classic rock, I think that oftentimes, like my kids even, have grown up listening to this other side of music, whether it was Queen or Led Zeppelin, and all those groups that followed, even the ones like Aerosmith and even bands like Bon Jovi and stuff. I think that we don't have anything like that now. So I think that that again, it's like I said in the book, it's like it embraced a certain time period that I think we're missing right now. Things have gotten a lot darker, and I think part of my style of writing is I try to write things that are somewhat simple and yet musically a little bit bent, or the lyrics are a little bit bent, but they're easy to sing to. I don't know. At the end of the day, I don't know why they just keep relicensing the same song over and over again. But it's a gift that keeps on giving. I'm not complaining.
It hits, it hits, right? I
Right.
think you're right. It's such I had a conversation about music with someone earlier that the transition between music in the 80s and the 90s where the only access you had to it was purchasing it, hearing it on the radio, if it was featured in a movie or TV. And now with streaming and people having the ability and the technology to produce their own music and, singles, it's like releasing a single at a time has been for the last, what, 15 plus years. There's something lost. I think there's this oversaturation, in my opinion, and this anxiety to get things out instead of taking time to work on an entire album, right?
Exactly. And people don't even want to listen to an entire song now. They go to TikTok, they want to listen to the chorus. I'm like,
15 seconds of it. Yeah.
now I want to go to this one. Boom, 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 boom. It's like they don't even want to sit through a whole song, you know.
Yes. Yeah.
Um, and
Agreed. It's
yeah.
it's just such a different time. And for me, still like you and me both still working in music, we're seeing this and we're just like, where is this going? So let me ask you, you still work with people? Do you still like write for people and produce?
I do, but I'm writing more on my own, and I did actually help to put together a group, which Laura knows about at the Women's International Network, because she was involved with us trying to put it together for a while. But it's a group of all women. But the thing is, I wanted to do this for decades. I wanted to create a group where it was all women, but that they were as commercially successful as, say, the Go-Go's,
Okay.
only they were accomplished musicians, you know? So I did. And the guitarist is from Germany. We flew her in. Her name's Yazi Hofer, and she's a
Love
brilliant.
her.
And she's fast.
She's part of your super group?
Yeah.
Oh, love her. She just put out a song.
She did. She just put out which I thought was a little tame, actually, when you look at what she's capable of. But I think it has
Yeah.
to do with the songs. Now I'm going to write with her when she's coming over in May.
Yes.
Um, she's amazing, and she's a protege of Steve Vai, who's a friend of mine. So I wanted everybody to be that caliber. The lead singer is Lena Hall, and she won a Tony for Hedwig and the Angry Inch. She's amazing.
Yes. Oh my
So we've
gosh.
cut 3 tracks already, and and then what happened was we had a bass player and a drummer, and it seemed like everybody was so popular and so unique that they kept getting offered things. So we thought we're going to make it more like a coalition where is that the right word? Cooperative. It's sort of like the female, the bass player and the drummer are going to be able to come and go. They'll do like 3 songs, and then they'll go and do their thing, and maybe we'll have another group of women come in that for the next 3 songs.
Okay.
But the singer is basically a mainstay, because once you identify the voice of a singer, and then of course the guitarist Yazi is kind of a mainstay, because the guitarist and the singer go together if you think about
Right.
it.
Yeah.
Got Steve Stevens and Billy Idol. You've got Keith
Yep.
Richards and Mick Jagger and Brian May and Freddie Mercury, and
Agreed.
it just goes on and on and on.
Yeah.
Tyler and Joe Perry and on. So that's sort of them. And the group's called The Crush. So that's one thing that I'm working on. As far as writing, I just sort of feel like there are certain artists that I haven't written with that I really am hoping to get the opportunity to write with. And you would think, I'm in the Songwriters Hall of Fame and I can just pick up the phone and call anybody, but it's not like that anymore.
Mm.
Everybody's got handlers, and everybody's surrounded by artists, or not artists, by, gatekeepers. And I'm actually hoping that my book will sort of get my name out there to the younger generation so that I can work with some of these artists.
Yeah, you're right. As far as you talk about everyone having handlers, it isn't back in the day when you just pick up the phone and call. I miss those
Yeah, I know.
days.
Yeah, like I'd like to work with Lady Gaga. I'd really like
Oh
to
my
work with her,
gosh. You two
right?
would be
Wouldn't that be
fabulous
wouldn't that be
together.
great? She's so I kind of miss the artsy stuff she was doing, and when she was wearing like when she did Bad Romance and she was wearing the meat dress. I thought that was so.
Everyone will forever remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, but even the music, she was so, she's gotten a little bit conservative, but I think with her, it's just a phase. Like she goes through these phases because she can do so many different things. And she's gone through the Tony Bennett phase,
I was
who I
gonna say she went
love.
through a Tony Bennett phase and she did the movie with
Right. She's
Homeboy,
gonna,
the
and
remake of the
right.
Stars Born. And so you're right. She's kind of
And
going through where
different
she's just
ballads.
she's like
Just
dabbling in different stuff,
Yeah,
right?
I would love to
Yeah.
sit down and just write some crazy, crazy stuff with her. And then there's a new band that I would love to work with called Manskin. Do you know them at all?
Yeah, I
Manskin?
love them. Their music is so good. Didn't they just do a collaboration with Tom? Was it Bordello? Was it Tom? I
No, it
thought.
was Max Martin they worked with.
Oh, okay. That's it. That's what it was. Thank you. Thank you.
Right.
They're
Yeah.
so good.
They're
I
really
love
good.
them.
No,
You're
yeah.
gonna work with them?
I'd like to. No, I mean,
Okay.
nothing set up, but I have been talking to Ron Lafitte, their manager. So
Okay.
they're great
Well,
though,
fingers
and
crossed.
I love the fact that their bass player is feisty and she's badass. That's
She's so
to
good.
me it's exciting to see women out there just playing as good as the best. And she's really good.
I love that that's coming up. I love that especially with everything being online, people are being exposed more to women in the industry in all aspects of it, whether it's instrument playing, it's singing, it's songwriting, it's producing, it's engineering. I
Mhm.
love that for this up and coming generation for sure.
I realized I said coalition, but I meant more like a co-op. Co-op. The name is the word escapes me,
Like
but
collaborative.
no, it's not that.
Okay.
I think I'm getting too old. It's like
Ah,
it's slip things,
you,
words, and people's names just slip
you
my
do
mind.
so much, Holly. It's okay. Trust you do. I get tired just reading all the things that you've done. I'm like, my gosh, and she's still going. So
I did an audio book to this. Here's my book again.
there it is. I can't
There
wait to
I
get a
am.
copy.
I'm 40 years
Yes.
older than this cover.
You still look fabulous.
Thank you. Yeah, I did an audio book. I did the narration to it myself. They asked me to do it.
Nice.
And it's got demos of some of my biggest songs that I've never played before to anyone, like The Best
Ooh.
and Love is a Battlefield. And yeah, so that's on Audible. and the
Love
book's
that.
on Amazon. That kept me busy the last few years, and I just didn't really devote too much time to writing except for working with the crush, you know? Um, but I'm
And
always
have you are you gonna release, or I should say gonna, you said you've recorded 3 tracks with Lick Crush so far. Is there like a benchmark date of when things will be released?
well, we put something out. Look, we don't have big financing, so we're actually going to do a proper release of it. But we threw one thing on iTunes, and it's called AMF Yo-Yo, which is an acronym for Adios Motherfucker. You're
Ooh, I
so
dig it.
it's like it's a hit song. I mean, yeah, we have a clean version, but nobody wants to hear that.
No.
Yeah. RuPaul's a friend of mine. He said that he would put on a show, but I would have to clean it up because they can't they can't, you know.
Can we just talk about how my mind is like, "You're friends with RuPaul? What?" So there it is for
He's a
those that
music
wanna order
fan.
it.
He's a music fan. He's amazing. The thing when I first met him, everything that he knew about me and my career just kind of blew my mind.
Man, I love it.
You know, this
So,
was number 1 on hot new releases in popular music until about a week ago when it came.
congratulations.
Same thing on the audiobook too. So
Love
I'm
it.
really excited.
Congratulations on that.
It's a fun
Definitely
read.
get this book.
It's not a big book. You know, I had 100 more pages and we edited it and really trimmed it down almost like a hit song. It's like just trim all the fat off and just make it nice. And people are saying they like that because, you know, some of these memoirs just go on and on and on with facts and numbers and figures. And this is just like a fast boom, boom, boom read, you know?
Well, people have Google now. They can look those things up if they want to know. So you're stripping it to the meat and the potatoes of the story. To
Exactly.
really get
And
to know
also,
you.
I have,
Yeah.
it's pretty juicy in places too.
Oh, oh,
Extra.
look at that.
So I have some great photos there in like you know with Tina Turner. That's me when I was a hot babe.
Look at
In the 80s. Tina Turner, Patti Smythe. This was my band Device. I don't know if you remember that band, Hanging on a Heart Attack.
Oh,
Um,
I need to revisit that.
Rod Stewart, Steven Tyler.
Look
Here's
at
me,
that. Oh
in
my
Bon
gosh.
Jovi. Um,
Memory lane.
I know.
I love it. I still love tangible books. Like which I know that's not great for the environment and it takes up space, but I just love
Oh, me
it's
too.
so ASMR for me to flip pages and smell that and read it and just get lost in it.
I know it's weird to go swipe when you're doing the Kindle, you know? It's just it's so bizarre. I'm the same way. I like to sort of dog air the corners, and by the time I'm done with it, you know, it's like, oh, it's been through a war.
Yeah.
It's just more tactile, you know, something that you can I mean, and, you know, I get that. That's the same with music. Remember, like, when we had analog, we had vinyl records,
Mhm.
read who in the liner notes who produced it, who played on it, who engineered it. There was always a special thank you to
Yes.
and I always wondered who those people were, you know, and,
Right.
now it's just like with the streaming, you don't see any of that. You just
No.
you get a playlist and that's it. You know, so I
Yeah.
feel bad for people trying to make it now in the music business, especially songwriters. I mean, if you're the artist, at least you can go out and you can tour and you can sell merchandise and I don't know, perfume line or whatever. You've got your publishing,
Right.
whatever.
All the additional streams of income is so vital.
Right. But if
Just
you're
ask
just
Beyonce.
right, she's doing okay.
She's doing okay. So
Mhm.
I'm gonna assume if I say you recommend owning your music, you're gonna say yes? Owning the rights to your craft?
You know, it's really
Or does it
every
depend?
case. It really depends on the situation. I mean, look, if someone comes and offers you $8 million or something, and you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, there is an appeal for that, and that's why a lot of these really big artists are selling pieces of their catalog now.
I was gonna bring that up. You're right.
Yeah.
They're like, "Here, take it for X amount of
However,
millions of dollars."
however, if you don't own it in the first place because you signed a publishing deal and you gave your copyrights away, you don't build that catalog up to turn and sell it. So if you're talking about people starting out and they're looking to do a publishing deal, I would say there there may be a reason to sell a piece of your copyright. Copyright is sort of like the deed to a house, okay? So when
Okay.
you write a song, imagine a pie. Half the pie is publishing, half the pie is the songwriters. Now, when you first write the song, you own it all. But if you went to make a publishing deal, they might say, well, we want 50% of your publishing in perpetuity. And then you would have to decide, well, is it worth it? What are they going to do for me? And how much are they paying me up front? You know?
Yeah.
And if you needed the money because you couldn't pay your bills, it might be something that would get you through those times. So I'm not saying yes or no. Every situation's different. Here's the good thing. Well, it wasn't good at the time and I didn't know it, but I gave away 100% of my copyrights when I first started out. Did not know it. My attorney did not sit me down and explain it to me. And I only found out about it. I only realized what that meant about 15 or 20 years in. But the good part was that after 35 years, if you don't have your publishing and you do it the right way with an attorney, you have a window of time. You go to whoever owns the publishing and you say, I want it back. And you don't have to buy it. They have to give it back to you.
Whoa.
Yeah. So
Interesting. Okay.
so that's happened with me. So I got back The Warrior and I got back Love is a Battlefield. And
Wow.
Better Be Good to Me and all these songs I wrote, which I now own. And those are not for sale, you know.
Look at that. And now look what they're doing. Oh my goodness. Good for you. What
But
a
a lot
crazy
of
turn of events.
people don't know about this. I'm going to write an article and get it in some magazine like Billboard or something. I think people need to know that.
Yes.
I mean, I didn't even
Absolutely.
know what a copyright was. You'd be amazed how many writers don't know that. They don't understand how it works. And I've taught some of this in my master classes, but it's important information that people need. Knowledge is power, and people need to educate themselves with that sort of thing. If you're going to be a songwriter, what's the breakdown of that? It's a good thing to know. But like I said, the first thing you need to know is that pie, half publishing. And then if you write with someone, then it gets broken up into quarters. There's a whole sort of formula to it.
A lot of work that I've noticed people that I've either known, worked with, seen. When you're an artist, it's hard for them to grasp the business side, but that's so essential because
Mhm.
then you might luck
Yeah.
out like Kate Bush when they re-released Running Up That Hill, and because she owned it, from what I read, she was earning hundreds of thousands of dollars in
Fiona,
streaming each week for Running Up That Hill because it
good for
they
her.
released it in Stranger Things.
Well, I knew that, and I knew it became a
Yeah.
hit, but I didn't know that she actually owned her own copywriting,
Yep.
which copyright, which is great. Which, by the way, the thing that I was talking about with the reversions is only in America. It
Okay.
doesn't count. So, like, if you have a hit in Europe, it's not part of their way of doing things. It's only the United States. But I ended up telling Steven Tyler about it years ago. He didn't know about it. You can get, Krista wants to know, where can I get Holly's book, and is it possible to get a signed copy? You can get the book at any book. You can walk into Barnes and Nobles if you can find an open, like a real store, which is kind of obsolete these days, or you can just order it on Amazon and you'll
Yep.
get it right away.
Here's your link right here, Crystal. I'm going to put it in the chat for Amazon.
And as
Right
far
there.
as getting it signed, I'm happy to sign it. I don't know where you are, but like when you get it, we can figure it out. You can just write me via my website, which is hollyknight.com. There it is. I get all my email. I see everything, and I'll be happy to sign it.
Holly's the real deal. She's organic. If it's there and she reaches out to you, she will.
Yes.
So then,
Absolutely.
as we wrap this up, to touch back on your book, I cannot wait to get it and read it because I'm sure I'm just going to, like I said, cry through most of it. Was
Mhm.
any of it hard for you to revisit and write? And because you seem like you're really vulnerable in it. And is it something you would like to share?
Um, it was hard going through it and going through my whole life. Like, for instance, when I grew up, in growing up, there was some abuse involved, physical abuse, from my mother. And I wrote about it just very sort of one time. I didn't sort of harp on it the whole thing, but it kind of explains why I became I guess a fighter who, like my mother used to always say to me, "You're this, like you're the classical concert pianist. You're not this. Don't be this. Rock music is a bunch of trash and blah blah blah." So, when I wrote the dedication to the book, it's like to anyone who's ever had a dream and was told, "No, this is for you." And the interesting thing was when I wrote about these things, like the situations with my mother, it was pretty cathartic. Like I don't feel that pain now that I've written and I've gone through it for the 2 years. It's gone. It's like I've just sort of expelled it. The rest of the stuff was actually that I wrote about. There was nothing painful. It was more like hilarious and thinking, that really happened to me. I'm not writing someone else's story. This happened to me, and what a life I've had. And I was happy to share it. I'm really transparent in the book. I don't like reading memoirs where everything is just so perfect and they tie a little ribbon on it and nobody's telling the truth about anything. It's like sometimes I'll get together with friends that I haven't seen for a while and how are your kids doing? And they say, oh, they're great. They got this, they graduated, they got their master's, they're killing it. They look great, blah, blah, blah. And I'm sitting there going, well, that's wow. And I'll say something that's more honest, and all of a sudden they'll open up and go, yeah, well, actually, to be honest, blah, blah, blah. Like everybody wants to present this perfect facade. And I think
Yeah.
it's more relatable to be human and say, look, these are the things that happened to me. I didn't, this is not like one of those Me Too books either, because granted, a lot of people have gone through some harrowing, horrible situations, and I'm glad that that's all come out. But nobody really tried that stuff with me when I was in the music business, even though it was a male-dominated world, because I don't know. I think they just knew not to fuck with me. I have
There it
this
is.
I have this saying. It's a picture of a sword. It's in my book. Here, I'll show you this. And it
Yes.
says, "You can't feed me to the wolves. They come when I call."
Ooh, you can't feed me to the wolves. They come when I call. I love that should be on a shirt,
Should be on a tattoo, right?
a tattoo, a shirt,
Yeah,
a bumper sticker,
right.
everywhere.
I should do that. I should put that. Yeah,
Make that a tattoo.
yeah.
I love
But I
it.
think they just kind of knew. And when, there were a couple instances I write about where someone tried something and, I just told them to fuck off. But that was me, you know,
No,
that's
good for you. Good for you.
that's just my story. It certainly doesn't negate all the horrible stuff out there that it's amazing how
Oh,
coming
absolutely.
out more and more and more. It's the same thing with the drugs. I mean, I did a lot of blow in the 80s, but I wasn't addicted to it. I wasn't an alcoholic. Um, this is no story about rehab or any of that. And I'm not condoning doing any of those things. It's just like, just because you drink doesn't mean you're an alcoholic. You know what I mean?
Correct.
And so
Yeah.
that's my story, which is counter to all the stories of so many people. Oh my God, I can't tell you the amount of people that I worked with that were just total train wrecks. Or I met them, like for instance, Aerosmith, when they were at a time where they had just cleaned up and had to, or they were going to kill themselves. So I've seen all that. It just wasn't my story.
No, I'm sure I will love it. I mean, like I said, reading the bio on Amazon. I mean, like I said, I'll cry during parts because I'm going to relate, but I'm sure I'll laugh and just reminisce because you wrote a lot of the music it's like my high school yearbook. It's like my yearbook of life, the
Yeah, and
songs.
thank you. And there's a discography at the end of the book too. There's also a section where my editor said, "Can you list 10 songs that you wish you had written and why?" So
Oh,
I did. Although I couldn't keep
okay.
it, I did 13. I couldn't
Okay.
get it under that. Um,
That's incredible. So someone who has been a 2013 inductee songwriter of Hall of Fame songwriter can still go, but I wish I wrote these songs. I love
yeah,
it.
absolutely.
I love it.
Yeah, and to say why, because
Yeah,
for anyone that's interested in songwriting, it's a pretty informative book of things that songwriters need to know. And I think that section is even good because it explains why I think they're good songs. And yeah,
I agree, Lisa. That is an awesome quote.
thank you, Lisa.
So then there's the book. Make sure, oh, here we go. Make sure I am the warrior, my crazy life, writing the hits and rocking the MTV 80s. Oh, I loved the 80s. And
Yeah.
you can find that and much more at her website, hollyknight.com. It's KNIGHT, hollyknight.com. Thank you so much for being here on the show and sharing the memories, your success, the advice, crossing fingers that you're going to get that category at the Tonys and the Grammys. Let's just say Tonys and the
That's great.
Grammys.
A lot of people will be very, very happy that if that it should. I
Yeah,
mean,
I
it
agree.
really it has. Listen, when the Grammys, when rap came along, the Grammys had to add a category for rap music, which then became like a lot of categories in rap music, and
Right.
rap music often dominates the entire show. But they had to do it because it was valid, and there's no reason why the Tonys have in historically added categories when they thought it was necessary. So I'm not sure if I have to get signatures or how I'm going to do it, but you'll hear about it for sure.
Oh, I'm sure. And please give us the scoop so we can make sure we do put up an article and share it. Absolutely. Are you going to be, by the way, as we close this up, are you going to be at the at NAM and She Rocks this
I
year?
was just going to ask you that. That's so funny. Yeah, I think I'm going to stop by for sure.
Please do. Please do. Obviously, I'm going to be there because they moved it to April this year, and then I think by next year it's going to be January.
Right.
If I
Well,
looked it up right. So they're trying to, after COVID, try to get it back to the January, but I can't believe it's in like 8 weeks.
yeah. Well, it was weird. It was in the summer last year, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was June. I
Yeah.
feel like it was just yesterday because it's so close. And so it's like it won't be as hot as it was in June, but it's still LA. So it's going to be
Right.
hot.
Well, the
But
pandemic have fucked up everything.
it really did.
Thank
And
God
it's
it's
at
over. I
and
think
it's at the Ranch Saloon, if you know where that is. It's not gonna be at it's like a mile away. It's on Ball
right.
Road, but that's a really nice venue. We had so much fun with it last year, and they're so much more open to allowing us to help the setup and the tear down and all that. And it's a nice little intimate venue, and we're doing where we're live streaming it and doing things, you know, streaming since we did so well when we had to stream it in 2021. And so,
No,
like, some of the red carpet's gonna be streamed, but a lot of it's live and yeah.
I'm really proud of Laura though, because she really is sort of the OG that put that all together.
Oh
And
my
who
gosh, my
knew?
hero.
I know who knew. I mean, it's really sort of become something to go to the NAM show for, and really honors women. And
Yes.
good for her for doing that.
I always invite anyone who can, get a ticket and come because you don't need the NAM badge. If not, watch the live stream. You will learn so much about women in the industry you didn't realize are here, and we're just loud and we're doing things and
Well, that's what I'm
platforms
saying.
like this. Yeah.
People have no idea, like, how many talented women in music there are. I mean, I even hate to say women in music. It really should be how many talented musicians there are. It's not
It
about
should be.
man or a woman, but unfortunately, we have to make that a point because that's the point we're trying to make, right?
Yes. We represent, I mean, I think what we see that's out there, we're less than 8% represented across the board whenever there's like award ceremonies or if there's credits for movies or songs. It's not as many women as that are actually doing it. So you're right.
I mean, think about it. When you see bands playing, it's always like startling when you see an accomplished woman in that band. I mean, I thought that was so cool when Demi Lovato, I mean, I know the record didn't do that well, but when she put out her last record, they had Nita Strauss. And Nita Strauss left, Alice and was in this band, and she was very much dressed like sort of like a guy, but and playing magnificently. And she's a beautiful woman, and it was just so cool to see that. Like I
Yeah.
want to.
She toured with an all female band. So it was really awesome.
Oh, she did?
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Nita went with her. And there was another woman that I know that played bass. And I'm
Well,
so
the
mad that I
guitar
can't
we
think of her
used was
name.
this Irish woman named Tanya O'Callahan. Do you know who she is?
No.
And she ended up leaving us to join Whitesnake, and they were doing like a final tour or something, and then that got canceled because of health issues. But yeah,
Wow.
I mean, she's another badass, and it's great to see. And it's not just like they're great musicians and not it's so great to look at. They're all beautiful women too. It's like we can do it all. Kind of, I think of that the beginning of the Amazons, in Wonder Woman, and the Wonder Woman
Yes.
movies at the very beginning when the
Love that movie.
woman. That's what I love to see, you know?
Well, good. I'm looking forward to, because I saw you, like I said, when we honored you that first year, 2013, and that was my introduction to you. But I'm looking forward to actually meeting with you
Yeah, well,
this in the
I'll
8 weeks.
have a yeah, I'll hunt you down, I'll come see you.
Yes, get your autographed book, and we'll selfie together.
Maybe I'll bring a bunch of books in there, and if
Oh
anybody
my
wants
gosh,
pop
that's a great idea.
for Crystal.
Oh my
Magic.
see, Crystal, did you hear
I'll
that?
bring the book down and I'll sign it. I'll be there to sign. Anybody that buys a book, bring it down and I'll sign it.
And the She Rocks Awards is an Anaheim during the NAMM show, which is going to be Thursday, April 13th, and that is sherocksawards.com. Thank you again so much for being here, everybody. Like I said, go to Holly's website and get the book, the amazing book. This has been Live Front and Center. I'm your host, Mickey Angeline, and like I end every show, every day that you wake up, you determine how your day will go. Thank you for listening. Thank
Love
you
it.
for watching.